Council to order. The roll call show that everyone is here except Mr. Kunka. Mr. Kunka is out of town tonight, cannot be with us. So I ask that you stand, and I ask that Ms. Kimball please the pledge of allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Remain standing for our prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to serve, and especially the opportunity to serve as we work with children. And we ask that you bless and guide us in the high school relations. In your name we pray. Deliberation to approve the agenda. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Dr. Jones, we have the presentations tonight.
We do. First one, I'm going to ask Karen Horn to come up. At a previous board meeting, board members asked for some information about addressing sick leave and some incentives that may be possible. So Ms. Horn and her department did a nice job of pulling together some data to share and also some suggestions for incentives to reduce sick leave rates. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Horn.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to present this information. I hope that you were able to look over the PowerPoint and the attachments. Michelle is going to be able to pull up the attachments for me as we work through. And Terry Allison, who is HR and Finance, just give you some other handouts with data as well. So first, as Dr. Jones indicated, we do have had some questions regarding subs and sick leave and what can we do to improve that data. So tonight I'm going to share with you, first of all, what is the leave, and one of the attachments you had listed all the different types of leave. I'm going to give you some information on our sub pool. So when your constituents ask you, I don't have subs, why don't I have subs? I hope you'll be able to answer that question. And with so many substitutes, why aren't positions filled every single day? And can incentives actually reduce some use of sick leave, which is part of the reason that we need substitutes. So, on the green form that was in the attachment, you saw that there are multiple types of leave. With Fair Labor Standards Act, you know that not all of these leaves are required by law. So as employees of a school division, we are actually very fortunate to have the variety of leave that respects all aspects of our personal life. And of course, that assists us in our working life. Sick leave being one of the ones that's not required by law, and we do have comparable sick leave to all other Region 1 employing school divisions. So sick leave, personal leave, and annual leave, depending on how many months your contract is, and would vary on how many sick days, personal or annual. Annual leave would be for 12-month employees, personal leave for all other employees with the amount that took their full-time or part-time. So this is all given at the beginning of the year report for that first day of work. So that's uploaded, and a member of the staff, the finance staff, uploads all that information. She provides forms. That community form is actually given to each employee so they know right at the beginning of the year how much leave they have, how much they earn, and how much is carried over. So that information is important for them as they make decisions throughout the school year. ASOP is our absentee and our substitute finder. And Ms. Terry Stokes, who's here tonight, is our manager of that. And again, the finance person and Terry work to upload that information because that information and ASOP is used by both finance and HR, and every day to make sure that we have substitutes in there. All employees have a PIN, and they are able to access and request the different types of leave by phone or through their internet login. So this information is coming in 24 hours a day, and Terry is monitoring that, sometimes 24 hours a day. But sick leave does present an interesting situation. Annual leave is something that somebody's going to put in prior to, obviously, because that's some event that's planned. It could be even some type of family leave situation. But that's put in ahead of time, so substitutes can start being found. Sick leave, it's put in, mom, dad, driving the child to school, child gets sick, it's 6:45, it's 6 a.m. These kinds of things happen all during the day and night. When a person, an employee, enters the fact that they need some type of leave, that is when ASOP begins to search for the appropriate match. So if principals were to approve every sick leave, you see, there would be a definite time lag. So we need that ASOP to start searching for that absent, that fill, that substitute right away. So the employee puts in the sick leave without approval of an administrator or supervisor. So that is why it is not a pre-approved leave, and that is a change. Before ASOP, employees had to call their supervisor and request, and tell them at least. And that puts that person-to-person situation in there. So with ASOP, yes, it starts to find that substitute right away, but that sick leave is going in there without that prior approval. Substitute data. We have, at the time we did this, 175 active substitutes in our system. And Terry, did we get some more applications just this month? Yeah. So we're constantly getting more substitutes in. Terry and Karen and Terry work really hard to get them started in that process, get that background approval. So we're continually adding substitutes to our system. Our long-term subs are going to be people who are, for teachers, are going to be the ones that are licensed. And this pool comes from, for example, December graduates, or we find that people, when they move to Powhatan, they want to teach in Powhatan, but it might be kind of an odd time of the year. So they sign up to be subs, and we get them in really quickly in our system, because we do need those licensed teachers for that particular sub situation. Not all positions, yes, sir.
Is it okay if we stop you and ask
Absolutely.
questions and not do that? So can you give me some perspective? 175 substitutes, is that a good number? Is that a less than you need? Tell me about that number.
Well, it's what we have,
Right.
but we would always want more subs.
Okay.
But I think if we work on what we need to work on, and that is addressing the use of leave, then we might have less of a drastic need on a day-to-day basis. Another point that's important is that of those 175, which is a good number, all the substitutes are not available every single day. So they're able to put into ASOP what days they can work or cannot work, if they have a preference for, like some people are only in the sub for administrators. Some are only in their sub for elementary. Some are only in their sub for secondary. So of that pool for a particular position, there may not be a large number of people who are qualified or who feel comfortable coming into that situation. We do use a lot of retired people, so that's extremely helpful. We have a retired HR administrative assistant who comes in and is able to fill in some of the positions in central office, especially the front desk. So that's very helpful for the retired people. She's obviously very comfortable with the language, the types of calls, the confidentiality of the situation. And so in those positions, if she's not available, we had another really favored one, but we ended up hiring her. And that's what happens often. Our pool will be large, even larger than this, and then we end up hiring them because they are so good and they do fit the job so well.
Thank you for helping me understand that.
And so did we have more before the ASAP or less?
More subs?
Yeah, or Terry? We probably have more.
And I think that's also tied to Talent Ed, the fact that you can apply online, and our process is speeded up as far as going through the applications and all the paperwork and the background checks that's involved in that. That's another product that we use is very helpful to speed that up. And so people all over, not just our county, but there are people that sub in other counties who also use Talent Ed, and they indicate that they would be willing to sub in Powhatan as well. So our pool is actually increased beyond the boundaries of Powhatan because of our use of Talent Ed. So we also have what's called a site substitute for teachers in all the schools, and some schools even have two because of the number of the need in that building.
When I read this is the first thing I thought of. Could we increase that to make sure that each school has two, or maybe the high school would maybe need more? Maybe just during certain months you would need more than? Is that
Terry
considered?
Stokes gives information about days where there's going to be a real big, for example, if there's a professional development where teachers have to be pulled out of the classroom, Terry tries to get that information from administrators as quickly as possible and assign on those days where we know they're going to be large numbers. We also try to ask people, if they're calling for something that's not a scheduled appointment, we really have a lot of people and activities going on this day. Could that be scheduled on another day? So we do look at that. We do have two subs at the high school, which because it is our largest faculty is very important. So the two schools that we don't have two are at Powhatan Elementary, and I believe it's the junior high. And the numbers don't show that they do that. But we are monitoring that.
We just added a second site sub to the middle school and Pocahontas Elementary School because we were seeing a higher percentage of unfilled jobs and more difficulty with those schools. So the reports that we've gotten is that that's helped tremendously to have somebody there that you know is going to be there and fill in. And oftentimes that site sub can fill in for two people that are absent if the schedules match or if it's a morning and an afternoon. So they certainly help with that flexibility.
Well, good. And they become employees of our school system.
Full-time.
Yes. And then you run into a position where they're so good that they take a position and then you have to start again.
Exactly.
Yes. Those site subs are also filled in for assistants, for instructional assistants. So within that school, those site subs are used based on the need, whatever program need has the highest need. So if we're short on subs, that's where the site subs are going to be placed. And they might actually be in a position that would be a couple of days or a week, something that's not what we call long-term, which would be, for example, maternity leave or somebody out in surgery. That's when we look for that long-term sub. Somebody could really be the teacher.
So all of our site subs degree?
Yes. Yes. And many of them are licensed as well. Which again is very helpful and the teachers are very comfortable with that. Thank you for the question. So if you look at sick leave usage data, and we were able to pull this out of ASOP, the numbers represent the number of days. So from September 8th through February 4th is when we ran this data. There were 877.69 days that teachers took sick leave. And there are approximately 314 teachers in the division. Instructional assistants, 238.52. Food service, 151.72. And the decimals are, because people don't take a full day always. And remember that sick leave can be used for for a doctor's appointment, your children's appointment, taking your parents. So it's not just that person's personal need, it might be some other responsibility they have that is considered a sick event.
Karen, do those numbers include long-term sick
They
leave?
do not. We took long-term sick leave out of these numbers. So these are truly onesies, twosies, not the long-term numbers. School secretary, 74.71, and I do know that there were some people taking care of some family issues, but work long-term, so those are pretty high numbers. Those are pretty high numbers. So sick leave, when we say, again, let's put it together. Sick leave doesn't have to be approved, and there's a lot of different reasons that you can use it. Is that what it's being used for? They have it. They have that sick leave. It's part of their benefits. So we look at those numbers, and yes, they're pretty high. So what can we do to improve that? What can we do to erase that? Yes, it's really sick. Yes, I'm using my leave because I'm granted that leave. So I did a lot of research, and Mr. Walters can attest to the value of the various HR magazines and SHRM on the internet. So there's a lot of information out there. And much of what I was finding on incentives for employers was actually very psychological, behavioral psychologist articles. So many of them got pretty technical. So I did pull out some points that I thought that made sense to everyone, not just behavioral psychologist data. But if you think about it from that standpoint, do we want people that are doing things because they're getting rewarded? Do we want people with that mentality of, this is, I have these sick days, I should be able to use them. Other research indicated that the incentives that work best are ones that employees value. So what really matters to that employee? If you put this out here and say, I really appreciate you, does that matter to that employee? We want them to matter. We don't want to reward or promote presenteeism, and that's when employees come to work sick, and we've all experienced that with a happy neighbor in our office, and that might be somebody who's really so dedicated to work they can't imagine not coming to work, but that's not something we want to reward at all, because that does jeopardize everyone else. Sometimes people see this whole perfect attendance idea is way too big, way too difficult. They miss 1 day, 2 days. They're like, that's all for me. So your incentive has to have a little bit of layers in there. And you don't want the people who are really sick to be punished. And the data also indicated that often people who have to commute because of weather situations may not be able to get to work when they want to get to work. They can feel penalized because they had to take a day. And also research suggests that females tend to be more absent more often because they are taking care of their children in many situations. And so they may feel like that they are being penalized with that. So with all that in mind, we do have to consider that in the incentives I'm going to present to you. Dr. Jones thought you might want to be reminded about the sick leave bank, because obviously when we had a sick leave bank, everybody had more days. Those people who participated in the sick leave bank had other sick days that they could use. And so many of you will remember the study that we did regarding the sick leave bank. And so that was suspended and then rescinded. And so we do not have a sick leave bank in the division anymore. Questions on that? All right. So we understand we have sick leave. We understand people need to use sick leave. So what can we do to continue to very fortunate in Palatine that we've had superintendents who really appreciate all employees and let them know in a lot of ways. We're very fortunate that we have people like Mrs. Lynch who create programs and figure out ways to thank our employees. Simple things even like, we're going to have lunch for you this day. Making sure that PD is something that's uplifting and matters to our employees. So that's really important. This year, Mrs. McLaughlin and Dr. Jones brought us Dr. Adolph Brown. And we all want to stay in the balcony. And that is another way to promote this, let's use less sick days, by promoting that morale. So we started our year off really well with that attitude, and you hear that language around. So we're hoping that that's going to have an impact on people. That feeling good about being at work, no matter what your job is really important, and that might address some of those, today I'd really like to be doing something else, I'm just going to plug in that sick leave. So we hope that building that stay in the balcony attitude will help these numbers. So it'll be interesting to compare this year and another year to see if that did make a difference at the end of the year. Wellness program. Terry Allison has been working with me. We are going to establish a stronger wellness program, and right now with the schools and the transition that we're doing, we have not taken it to the level that we hope to. We do share out every month, is it every month or week now, the wellness notes. I think they're every week. So yes, we are sharing more wellness notes, which have good information in them, because if people feel better, of course, that's going to decrease the sick leave as well. So we're working on bringing more and more of that to all employees as well. We also have the Y program here in the county, and I know when Terry goes, she says, I saw this person and this person and this person. So we've got some good community resources that are also helping with wellness. Transportation department has been using an incentive program for how many years now, Mr. Jones?
2011 is when we installed it. I think it's like about August 2011, the school board approved us implementing that incentive program.
Okay. And one of the attachments, do you mind bringing up that table? One of the attachments shows that the data that has been collected on that, there has been a decrease in the amount of sick leave used. So I thank Mr. Johns for creating that for us and
I
showing
actually think
that.
that's pretty impressive. When I
That
saw
is.
It really is impressive.
Yes.
That's half. It's half.
It-
Over a period
it-
of time.
It achieved what we wanted to do. It really did. And
That's great.
on the chart, it said it's 300, but built into that is that if drivers do take some, then it would be reduced, and they're still eligible for some. And so even when you combine the cost of what our substitutes were versus the payout that we're doing, it's saving the school money, but that wasn't the reason we implemented it. The reason was we needed the drivers there, and this has achieved that. It works for us.
Thank you. All right. So with that in mind, when I went to our recent Region 1 division meeting with other HR directors, I asked how many people were using some type of incentive program in their division. And not a whole lot of them were. And so based on the data from our division, it appears that it is valuable. And of course, it is not just about how many sick days you use and how much that's going to cost, because the productivity and the impact of having that teacher or that employee at their job, that face-to-face time with our students, that is the real impact when an incentive program works and keeps all employees on the job. So one of the examples in my research that I found was used for a variety of employees. So the way I've set up these ideas to present to you today would be a program that would be for all employees who are not classroom teachers. And then I have a suggestion for employees who are classroom teachers. So this would be for everyone who is not a classroom teacher. This idea has a dollar amount, just like the transportation. So, and it also goes by semester award. And that was the suggestion from several other Region 1 people, is that to break it up by semesters, they set a goal, and people felt more like they could attain it by semester. So at $125 per semester, if an employee does not use any of their 10 sick days, and that would be paid out on December 30th. And June 30th would be their last paycheck, and that would be if the second semester they also achieved that zero. And then if they used one sick leave day, then the amount would be $75. So if you would look at your document I placed on your desk that has the two incentives marked, that is real numbers of our employees who have 0 and 1 that could be bigger than this. The other part of that table that's important to note is that some of these positions, just like a teacher, do use subs, and some of them do not. Now, in the budget, there is a specific amount of dollars per location, and that's really built on a history of usage. Is that correct, Mr. Johns? So based on the history of usage of subs on that particular site, there are line items for amount of money that is allocated for, or appropriated, I guess is the correct word, for subs on that site. And so if you think about the people who would need subs, if you are giving them, awarding them this incentive, that really decreases the amount that you're going to pull from sub costs. So in a sense, it sort of pays for itself monetarily. But again, it's so important that people are there, because that's the real reward for us as a division, that people are there. So are there any questions on that? And thank you, Terry, for getting all that. Thank you. All right. So if we look at the suggestion for classroom teachers, this is an activity from the board. Again, what matters to the teacher? Well, the teacher who's going to be there every day is there using materials, and so this gives them an opportunity to purchase additional materials for that classroom. So with perfect attendance, and this would be a year award, for perfect attendance of the year, it would be a $300 fund put into the activity fund for their school. And I believe Dr. Jones suggested to me that it actually be a line budget item to make that.
Yeah, I would think if we end up moving forward with this, we should probably designate it as a budget item within our instructional materials fund. We have funds at the school that we wouldn't want to touch, but we also have funds centrally. So this would kind of be an add-on as an incentive for those teachers, and what we would just separate out how much we anticipated that fund being, so that we wouldn't tap into it for other needs.
Thank you. And so another layer to that could be if a teacher was absent one day, then just like with transportation, they would still receive this activity fund award, which is not at the same amount. And I did include for absences up to 2 sick days for $150. And these would be awarded at the end of the, well, it would be awarded so that they would know they would have it to purchase for the next school year. And if somebody were to retire, they could get with the principal and say, I would really like this person to have that, or designate how that money would be divided, because they did earn it. So one of the other handouts I gave you gives you the number of teachers who would actually, at this point, have 0 absences. So the reality of it, there is an amount there. Flip to mine, so I can give you that exact amount, so other people can hear. As of right now, we have 29 teachers in the division who have used 0 sick leave days. That's pretty good. We have 27 who have used 1, and we have 18 who have used 2. So you can see how that would come to a total of a little over $17,000. Now remember that when we're awarding that amount, we're not paying a sub for that amount of time, and the students are having their teacher. So that is very important to us. Any questions on that data? And I will post these for the board docs. I'll present those to Michelle so that she'll have those for board docs. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if I could ask, would it be easier, I've got a couple of questions, would it be easier if I asked them to use Google Home? Is that better for you?
That's fine.
Okay, so tell me about the incentive, and I very much like that incentive piece, and it is effective, you're exactly right, it does address this. Why did you approach it from the perspective of the rest of the staff getting financial compensation directly to them, and the teachers getting it in the form of compensation for their classroom funds?
Okay. Again, all the research and everything I read, this was a program that worked. When I talked to the Region 1 schools, most of them said, well, we tried the financial award to teachers, and the first year it worked, and it really didn't work after that. It didn't mean enough. It wasn't that connection that I'm looking for, and that intrinsic motivation. This, a teacher who's using 0 sick days loves their children, and this gives her more product for her classroom. So it's on his classroom. It aligns with that, to me, that motivation.
Right.
So there was one Region 1 school that said that they did a $100, they called it a gold award, and they've been doing that for about 10 years, and that has shown a decrease in the use of sick leave. But based on everything that I've read, this model was well laid out and well received by classroom teachers.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, if I could ask a follow-up question. So you're paying this to them in their check for the non-classroom personnel? Is that what you contemplate doing?
For IRS purposes, yes.
That's where I was going to go.
Yes,
So
sir.
that's the situation that we're creating for our non-classroom folks, but for the teachers, it's not going to be compensation. So really,
That's correct. It's not
It's not
something you have to
taxable.
report, exactly, because it's for their classroom.
okay.
And they would be one of our higher salary employees as well, so.
We could take an additional step. I mean, we have a kind of a test pool of candidates here. We could go and sample and see talk to these 74 teachers that would qualify and ask them what they would feel would be more valuable. I know what the research says, but sometimes the research and reality aren't connected.
And if you were saving for a big vacation somewhere or something, that, yeah, I like that idea, Dr. Jones.
And Mr. Chairman, I understand, I'm not a teacher, but I've been told all the time that they spend an inordinate amount of their own personal money trying to get ready for the school year. And this probably is exactly what they would want, but I think that would be an important question to ask, just to get their buy-in before we were to move down that path.
I think so too. I like the idea of including the teacher. I mean, this is who we're talking about. So let's ask, well, not even only the teachers, let's do a survey to the employees
Everybody that would
and see what incentive would
Right.
hopefully make them not get a sub one day if they weren't really dying of something.
No, I agree with Ms. Ayers, and I guess I would just say too that I'm always a little leery of policies that sort of start to segment the workforce and treat different segments in different ways when they're all full-time employees. But I think that would be interesting to know.
That's easy enough to do.
Would the transportation be the same for
The
that department?
transportation would stay what they have, because that's already been set.
Right, and that's working, so why would we want to stay up with that amount if it's working in that department?
One thing to consider is if you're talking about giving a teacher $300 for the year, $150 a semester. Time you do FICA on it, with their tax bracket, they're not going to bring on very much. I hear coaches complain about that on a pretty regular basis. I'm getting paid $300 a month. I may be bringing on 75. Everything's said and done. So, I think it's important to survey.
We could include that information in the survey so that people know you're not getting, years ago you could give out gift cards. The IRS has cracked down on that now, so it's almost impossible to do that. You have to report that as income. But I know that, when I was a principal, we would use those as incentives because people could go out and use them as a gas card or something like that, but can't do that anymore. So we can present that information as maybe pros and cons of both of the approaches.
Absolutely, we'd glad to do that.
So, Mr. Chairman, could I ask one follow-up question about that? If I'm reading, and this is just for my own information, so if I'm reading this correctly, it seems like you've got one amount if they don't miss any days, then the amount if they miss one day is not quite half, it's more than half. Tell me about how you got to that.
Basically, that was the model that had been used and worked in that division. I can certainly, those numbers, I can certainly change those. This is being presented as an idea, and looking for your advice and suggestions is very helpful.
Well, I love something you said earlier, that you went to the meeting with the other HR directors and that almost no one else was doing this because, there's a lot of research that supports the idea this is a very effective way to address sick leave use and to lower sick leave use for employees. And it's great to talk about us being progressive and lending guidance to other school systems. It's nice to be the one that other people look to. So I commend you for that. But now I'm just trying to understand how you reach those two numbers.
I think part of it, at least from the model that we looked at, was there's often a difference between an employee who may be single and not have a family, and I think trying to be fair to an individual who does have a family, knowing that children get sick, there's doctor's appointments, those types of things, it may be easier for that single employee not to miss any time. So I think we wanted to make the awards and what the model we looked at, we didn't want it to say, like, if you're only perfect, that's all you're going to get. You still, if you miss 1 or 2 days, then that's also good and you need to be rewarded.
Good answer.
And throughout this, with incentives, you're starting with this award, which of course with some of the negative research, you're not just expecting this behavior, but you're going to get a reward or award. What you want to do with this is also to change the culture. I think once people initially get in there and they do get that nice feeling by being appreciated with an actual award, we all let people know, and our supervisors let people know they appreciate them. They're a perfect attendance or they're great attendance. That's verbally appreciated, and that's a really good plus to building that positive culture. But as people actually get that reward and go, yes, that's going to build, that's going to be something we can build on. And we're going to eventually get to where people don't use us, just use it less, because it's important to them, and they realize that it's important and what impact it has on their job. Yes, sir. Okay. So do incentives work? Well, they're certainly worth considering because we spend more on budget on salary and benefits of teachers than any other category. Incentives work when they're tailored to employees and are valued by the employees. So that's why we look to either the money or, as Mr. Walters pointed out, why would the classroom activity fund be more of an award to a teacher than actual cash cash or extra in their paycheck. And we will certainly need to collect data if we do implement this on, just as Mr. Johns did it make a difference in our use of sick leave? Lastly, next steps, building principals and all supervisors have access to ASOP, and they need to continue what they've been doing, and that is addressing individual situations. Our policy does allow for request of doctor's appointment if there's a pattern there appears to be of neglect. So that is there for them to use, and they do use that when necessary. Consider the cost of not applying this to plan. You saw the numbers. That's a lot of sick leave days. So do we want to continue that, or do we want to build on our stay in the development mindset and change that? We do want to celebrate all of our employees that stay in the balcony and do what we want them to do. And so we want to keep bringing people along, and we want people to have healthy attitudes about use of sick days. And if we select that ed plan, and we will track that data and evaluate the impact and be able to address it. So, any questions?
I'm sorry, I just kind of thought that, like, in addition to monetary incentives, I mean, just really praising these people, putting their names maybe in the local paper or on the website, recognizing, and, you know, there is a part of me that says, you know, if you have children and they're home sick, you can't help. There's just times that you can't help being sick or having a child that's sick, or taking care of parents, or whatever you have to do. But I think that might go a long way, just to, in those questionable days or scheduling a doctor's appointment. Gosh, I really maybe don't have to miss a day to get this recognition. And I mean, I know there's nowhere really in here, and I just did the math really quickly, and I'm not a mathematician, but what roughly we spend on substitutes, not including long-term subs, about $195,000 a year.
I have it by school.
No, we're spending more than that. I don't remember the exact number, but it's more than
Not
that.
including long-term? Not including?
I don't have it broken
It's
down. I just
okay.
captured
It's
the
okay.
total.
I was just trying to get like an idea that we have it on paper saying the incentives would be $17,400 and some dollars.
Yeah.
But, and yet in reality, we spend like over $100,000 on substitutes.
Significant more. I can,
Significant.
I'll answer the question for
Okay.
you tomorrow.
That's fine.
I'll
I mean,
show you.
like I said, I was just looking at the numbers that we have, which aren't complete anyway, but that was just the ball, I wanted a ballpark,
I think it's
so.
almost triple.
It's,
Oh,
But we'll get that data for you.
okay, yeah, you're right, because I do remember years that it was like a two
It's been
something,
more
two.
than that. We've had, back in the 08-09 year, it was up to like $400,000 and we
Oh.
started cutting it down. I mean, it's
Okay.
been high before.
Okay,
So it's,
okay, well,
but I'll get a good number for you tomorrow.
and I guess what I was saying, a year, that was the numbers that we had just for this part of the year, so I'm thinking that would certainly indicate that by the end of the year, it would be $300,000 or so, as opposed to incentives of 18. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll do some more, take your suggestions, work on this a little bit more, and then bring it back to you at a later time, and time to hopefully implement something for next week.
Very nice job.
Yeah, thank you so much. You did a great job.
The only other comment I've got is that there are often teachers in the building who cover when there are people out. You know, I feel for those teachers because we often get the same teachers over and over again. Maybe I look at some way to recognize them as a part of this too, because I think there are people that step up and take care of us when they're short and really at a moment's notice, they're planning to go do something else, and all of a sudden, someone walks down the hall and says, I need you to cover this class, and it's you know, they deserve some recognition.
That's a really good idea.
That's very
That's a
good.
great idea.
It's a shame we can't give gift certificates, because
I know.
everyone likes to just give a $5 gift certificate to Wawa and say, thank you very much for doing
Yeah.
this.
At the elementary level, where we're hit is with our interventionists and our assistants that are supposed to cover classes, and they aren't then able to provide Thank you all.
We're now to our budget comment.
Budget update.
Budget
Yep.
update first.
Yep, I'm gonna ask Mr. Johns to come up. We've got a PowerPoint, just some additional information, and then some updated information on some revenue numbers, some work that we continue to do, as well as some additional information about our targeted adjustments for our employees. Mr. Johns?
Yes, sir. Well, we've had quite a few changes since we talked about the budget at the February 9th board meeting. A couple of big changes off of this slide. The local county transfer number has gone up. Payroll and benefits has gone down, and other line items have gone up. I want to go over the details of each of those. The first one is the local county transfer. We have projected that to be $692,000. The county administrator revised that projection down to $555,000. However, the county administrator also informed us that we can add back in the $260,000 that the county's held back for SRP. In FY15, the county held back $265. In this fiscal year, they held back $260. Those dollars have fully funded the SRP program now until all of the current participants are paid out. So those dollars will come back to us in FY17. That jumps county revenue from $692,000 to $815,000, basically another $122,000, and that's a good thing.
Let me just say, and Mr. Walters may have stayed at the Board of Supervisors meeting longer than I did, but Ms. Weiler presented her budget last night to the Board of Supervisors and included this amount as a transfer to the school district, and there were questions by a couple of Board of Supervisors, apparently Ms. Weiler told me this afternoon, about that money and why it would go back to the school district. According to my understanding, Ms. Walters jumped in and if you were there and can add any additional information. But Ms. Weiler told us because we told her we would give it back to them after the fund was fully paid for. But apparently Mr. Williams and Mr. Tucker had a question about that. So I anticipate that will be a discussion point at our next budget meeting. But I talked to Ms. Weiler again. She feels very strongly that it was a commitment the county made to the school district that this money revert back, that it was just temporary to pay off that liability. The liability is paid off, so the money should come back. So we're going to include it for now, but I wanted the rest of the board to be aware that that may be a discussion point moving forward. I don't know, Mr. Walters, anything you want to add on that?
No, so that's a fair summary. There was quite a bit of discussion amongst the board about the fact that money, whether that automatically reverted back to the schools. I don't know, they felt quite as strong as well.
Right.
But at any rate, this is all subject, as it is each year, to the Board of Supervisors appropriations. So we won't know for sure until that does in fact happen. Next item is the state revenue. State revenue has not changed since the last presentation to the board. It is still projected to increase $726,000 based upon the governor's budget. Now, both the House bill and Senate bills have been released. The Department of Education has not yet released the calculation templates for us to totally look at what the impact is going to be for us. But in reading those two bills, it looks to me like under the Senate bill, our revenues would decrease a little bit, and under the House bill, they would increase a good bit. Typically, we find ourselves in this position each biennium, and it falls out somewhere between the two. That being said, I don't think our state revenue will go down once the budget is completely adopted by the General Assembly. But it's just another thing that we're going to have to wait and see what it turns eventually out to be. Payroll and benefits. We've had some changes in payroll and benefits. The first item, VRS projected increase expense, has not changed. That rate is still set to increase slightly, the professional rate. Both House and Senate bill left that rate alone, so I see that will, that number will be a pretty good number. We're still anticipating a health insurance increase in premiums. I do not yet have the specific rate renewal for that, so I don't know what it is. Right now, we had projected it at 7.2. That number could change. Historically, in the past, when we've been given a number, the actual numbers come in a little less than that, but you never know until you actually get the rate renewal. It potentially could be more. But we should know that in the next week or two.
Does that number represent us assuming the 100% of that?
No, ma'am, what this number represents is what the employer cost would be if the increase is split. So that means that if we're looking at a 7.2, typically an employee would be looking at a 7.2 as well. Now, when they project an increase of 7.2, that is an increase on total premiums. It does not mean that each tier will increase that much. Some tiers may be more than that, some tiers less than that. And then we have to work through the formulas because we're required to pay 80% of the blended, and then another 20% of the difference for employee plus one. So until you get that rate sheet, you really can't work it out. I mean, you can make estimates, but you can't really work it out to know what the true impact is going to be for either us or the employee. So right now, this is just a placeholder of dollars. The school and department budget request, additional 4 FTEs, that has not changed from the last time. The salary adjustments have changed from the last time. The last time we had projected moving teachers to the median. For this fiscal year, they were moved to the median, but then we lost ground when other divisions gave raises as well. So what we were able to do is to go back and take a closer look at teachers and give them a minimum of 2%, and then take those steps, mid-range steps that are below the median and provide a little bit more than 2% for them. And so the payroll and benefit cost has gone up with that. All other staff in this plan are projected to receive a minimum of 2% and then targeted adjustments, moving them towards the median, but capped at 5%. Those are the two plans for that. This last item of negative reduction of $298,000, again, as of last night, the board of supervisors did pass a resolution stating that they are supporting moving forward with the middle school, tearing down the junior high and rebuilding a new middle. Again, they've not yet appropriated dollars, but they passed a resolution saying they're going to do it. So with that said, we identified some staff. We had already identified some line item reductions, but we identified some staff that there would be savings because we were operating 5 schools instead of 4. And that is reflected in this budget. And those savings are also, you'll see in a later slide, placed on the capital line, just like we had done with the reduction in line items to be used for CIP project.
And let me just add to that, that's a number right now based on our calculations. That number could change as we continue. That amount is solely through attrition and reassigning to open positions. It's not people losing jobs. The only position that we've eliminated at this point is one of our RN positions. We are very fortunate in Henrico to have an RN in every one of our schools. Wow. They're not fortunate. Happening. Can you go back and scratch that?
18
It's gonna be a gap. It's like Nixon tapes. In Powhatan, we're very lucky to have an RN in every building. I can't justify recommending having 2 RNs in every building and that being a taxpayer funded position. So we have had that conversation quite a while ago with our last RN that we've hired. So she's aware and has been given ample time, and being an RN will have no problem getting another position. So, but that's the only position that's been eliminated. All of those other savings are simply from us, from attrition and filling open positions. I'll give you that information at a later time. We obviously want to talk to our employees first and let them know, but we will certainly give you that information so that you can be prepared to answer any questions that may come your way.
Could I just ask, Mr. Chairman, if I could ask one question about item number 4? That seems very similar to what Ms. Wilder presented in her budget as far as increases for the county staff. It's arguably the same sorts of increases that they're receiving.
Correct, and we purposely modeled ours to be consistent with the county. We've been in communication, and both of our goals were to give, as we said last time, 2% to everybody. They've done a similar pay study and are trying to address some deficiencies for their employees, just like we're doing. So I think does mirror exactly what the county's doing.
Yes, sir, my concern was just that we were in a really close place where the county was with their staff for the discussions that you're talking about. Thank you.
And do we have the dollar amount that we saved in the fuel costs, the projected fuel costs? Because I think that's an important number that needs to be out. A lot of people have asked for that.
I have posted it in the line items for diesel and fuel. I don't have it remembered.
Oh, I don't
right
expect
now.
you to remember, yeah, but I'm just saying that I think that would be that was a savings, and I think we need to let the public know that we're saving, when we are saving money, and that we're using exactly or approximately how much in the savings.
We, as soon as we finalize that contract, we've got an idea, but we would need to finalize the contract, but we will update the line items with that amount. Thank you.
You're welcome. And also, I wanted to know about instructional assistants back in the classroom for elementary schools. Is this the time to discuss that or not?
Sure.
Okay, well, I would like to bring that out and discuss that because I feel that, as we had said before, when we do need a substitute, many of those assistants are pulled from the classroom to do that job. We spend a lot of money, as I've said before, on the remediation of our students. And I'd like to see some emphasis go back to the foundation and get the assistants back in the classroom to help the teachers with smaller groups. And if we can't do it, I don't expect that we could do it all in 1 year, but maybe we could start next year with just kindergarten. Maybe we could get back to one assistant for 2 classes to share, to start out that way, if we can't afford one for each classroom. But I would like to see that.
We, as I told Ms. Ema when we had an earlier conversation about this, and I appreciate her bringing it back up, that we rely on the principals to bring us suggestions for staff or needs in their buildings. Instructional assistants as a standalone didn't come up. We did get a request for library assistants and some other requests, but not for instructional assistants. If it's the will of the board, we can certainly go back and have that discussion and bring back a dollar amount and look at what it would cost to add those staff to our buildings. I'm not doubting the value in them. I'm just letting you know why they're not.
Well, I think a lot of teachers feel like that, they don't want to be asking for more, but I bet you any of those teachers in the early elementary grades would, and if the principals are here, would say that they would need them, so.
We can do some work on that and bring it back.
Thank you.
I think you balance that off with the total budget. I think it's going to be up to us, if we decide that is something we look at, we have to decide, okay, is that, what do we, we've got limited dollars, we're going to be able to get an increase. Where do you put it? You put it towards instructional assistants, you put it in salary. And that may be the decision we come down to in the end. And so we're just gonna have to look at that, and once again, ask teachers what they want. So I think it's a good point, but like I say, I wish there was more in the pot than there is, but the pot only has a limited amount, so we'll have to work within that, whatever that set amount happens to be, once we know what exactly what it is.
This next slide speaks to the other line items, and the big change here is that second number, the $518,000. We were already reflecting a reduction to the O&M category of $219,000 in the event we were able to move forward with the junior high and close a school. We've added the $298 to that, and so those dollars are still placed in our budget, but they're moved from personnel costs into the line items. So it shows that the total line items do go up $767,000, but the net of that change is really just $249,000 increase to our line items. And of that $249,000, $75,000 for one-time cost for O&M to make the moves, staff and everything from the junior high and middle school to the elementaries and so forth. So not a big increase in line items at all for this year.
Let me, if I could, Mr. John, speak to that $518,000. Right now, we have that, again, as a placeholder that we would be able to keep in our budget, in our operating budget, as a capital improvement line item to take care of some capital projects that we assume responsibility for or that may come up. I did have a conversation with, in addition to my conversation with Ms. Weiler about the SRP money, we did talk about the CIP and their goal to try to do as many of the projects as possible. And you will remember from our joint meeting that part of the issue is it's a cash flow issue in the first few years. The funding plan that we currently have is that we would reduce our operating budget by $650,000 in FY19. I did have a conversation with Ms. Weiler and said that, we're willing to contribute and help out if that's the need that we would, and put some of that money, 518, towards debt relief in the short term up until 2019. So we did have that conversation. It may come up again. I feel comfortable. This is actually more money than we thought would be in a capital improvement line item. We're going to have, I think if we had the 219, 250, we would be able to handle all the capital needs that we have on here. So if that money reverts back to the county early in FY17, at least a portion of it, I'm comfortable with that as long as it counts towards our $650,000 that we have to reduce. It would just be an earlier reduction. So that may come up in our joint meeting. I just want to give you all a heads up about that. If you have any questions or want to talk about it further, I'm happy to do so.
And if I could add to that capital, I know you all remember that the supervisors did finally set up the capital reserve fund for the school division, so that dollars that we have left at the end of the year are set aside, on their books under the school capital fund, reserve fund. And so the year that we just ended, June 30, 2015, our balance did go to that fund, and we do have about $280,000 sitting in that fund now. And so ultimately, this board and superintendent will make a recommendation as to what you do with those dollars, but just wanted to make you aware that you do have that sitting there. This chart, what I wanted to do, because I'm sure you all remember, and Ms. Harris, you mentioned health insurance already. Last year, or this current budget year, the school board did pick up the full amount of the increase that we had in health insurance. And at the time, we were projecting a 4% increase, and it came out to be about 3.2. And There's been some discussion about whether or not the board would do that again this year. After the last board meeting, I had a couple of employees that do have our health insurance come up and, say to me that, they'd rather see those dollars in salary because it helps retirement. So I thought, well, let me just put a chart together for the board to look at. And this presentation is very similar to one we did back in 2012 when the General Assembly mandated that we shift the 5% DRS back to the employee to show you what the net cost is. And so if you look at column B, this is taking a 10-month teacher with 30 years of service. It takes her monthly gross salary, takes all of the deductions. The health insurance is the family plan on the Key Advantage Expanded, which is our most expensive. And it shows you that after all these deductions, that teacher's net income is $2,277 a month. If that employee were to retire, the VRS payment on a monthly basis would be $2,600 a month. So column B represents current, but column B also represents if we did have the 7.2% increase and the board assumed all of that again, you see there's no change to either the employee's net income or the employee's retirement. So if you move over to column C, what column C does is it says, okay, we're going to take those dollars that we were going to allocate to health insurance, and we're going to move them into a salary increase instead. And if you look at the bolded health insurance line, you see that health insurance deduction was $899. But a 7.2% increase, that goes up $65 to $964. So in this column, in this scenario, the employee pays that $964 but gets an increase in salary. And their net pay, because that $964 was paid with pre-tax dollars, their net pay decreases $28 a month, but their retirement income, assuming they work 3 more years at this level, increases $32 a month. So it's one of those situations of you give up something now to have more later. Then column D, what column D does is it assumes that you just give the employee a 2% increase. They're paying the premium, they're paying the health insurance premium $964. And in that scenario, their net income drops $36, but their retirement income increases $51 a month. So, if you're anywhere near 5 years or so of retirement, you're going to say, give me column D. If you're a new employee that, every penny counts, you may say, give me column D. I just wanted to put this together for the board to look at and consider as you deliberate what you want to do moving forward.
And I'd also point out, we talked about this before, but the bolded number 6 at the bottom, that 69%, and that's the current number, Mr. Jones?
Yes, sir, it is.
69% of our employees take advantage of our health care plan. So by paying for the health care premium increase, we're only touching a little over 2/3 of our employees, and that would be the same 2/3 that we impacted last year by picking up the health care increase cost. So that's just something else to keep in mind. The other 2/3 of our, or other third of our employees that are on other plans are probably also paying health care increases for whatever plan they are, and that may be a choice, it may not be a choice that they have based on their situation.
Any questions about this?
I think if you don't put, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I apologize, just to say if you don't put it into the base salary, it further aggravates our comparison with other districts as well.
Correct.
Yes.
That's true.
But it's good information to see.
Yeah.
I think Mr. John's right on the money. If I'm close to retirement, I want the last one because most of the retirement, a lot of our teachers are not there.
Yeah.
What this slide does is it just shows you what we have done this current budget year and what the salary plan is for the next school year, FY17. And the bracketed groups at the top were the ones that were targeted and received an increase this year. Our teachers were moved to the median for this year, but then if you remember the updated salary study we reported to you in December, we still lost ground by moving to the median because our neighbors that we compare ourselves with also gave increases. That's one of the reasons why we wanted to go back and not just move teachers to the median, but to try and do an additional adjustment. That's why we've got the minimum of 2%, so that hopefully we won't lose ground when our neighbors give their teachers increases as well. The next group's coming down on the left, your cafeteria workers, teacher assistants, mechanics, drivers, and nurses. They received a targeted increase for this year, but capped at 7%. Our assistant principals and principals received a targeted increase capped at 2%. All your other employee groups did not receive one this year. If you look to the right, and so that amounted for this year, 64% of the employees received something. Going forward into next year, the plan is for 100% of the employees to receive something, and it would basically be a 2% minimum for all employees, and then targeted, and all the targeted would be capped at 5%. So what I want,
everyone would get, all the targeted ones would get an additional.
well, these next slides kind of go and show you by groups, you know, what's going to happen to each of them. 5
Okay, go right
pages.
ahead.
Slide ahead. This slide is of our administrative pay group, and our administrative pay scales include these employee types: the assistant superintendents, directors, principals, and assistant principals. And just starting at the top, what this chart is showing is the number of divisions that use this job title that we compared ourselves with. And right now, based upon the study that we reported to you in December, the average of the 3 individuals on this scale were at 10.7 ranking. If we do the adjustment as planned, that number would change to 10.3 average ranking, assuming the other divisions in the region don't get an increase. Don't know what they're going to do yet. Don't know. So there's no way to really compare now. But at least with the data that you have right now, you can see that's not a whole lot of change for this group. And the reason is because this group, the percent that they're below the median is from 31 to almost 42%. And so in this case, all 3 of these individuals would get, in this last column to the far right, would get the minimum 2% plus a target, but capped at 5. And so just as a reminder of all of the ones on this group, the ones at the last 4, the principals and assistant principals received a targeted increase capped at 2 this year. But still, even with another 2 in target, all of them would receive the 2% plus, except for 1 assistant principal. And so you can see, based on these percentages, that this group of employees are significantly below the median. So if there are any questions about this one, I'll be quick. This is our administrative support pay scale, and this is the type of employees that are on this scale. Done the same methodology for this group, and you can see that our supervisor 1 are below the median, and they are even with an increase, targeted increase, they're still going to remain below the median. They are currently averaging 9.0 out of 10, and we'll move to 8.8, so there'll be some improvement there. Supervisors too, on this one, you've got 3 employees on this pay scale, and 2 of the 3 would receive the 2% plus a target. 1 would just receive the 2%. And so let me just get down to the administrative assistants. You can see where we really only have one of those that are slightly below the median. And so this group would just get the 2% and nothing above that. And that simply speaks to the longevity that those individuals have been with the division. And so that's it.
So I think what's important, and I know you'll need some time to digest these charts and look through them, but I think what's important is the information that's given is kind of where we rank, how far below the median these employees are, and then the other important thing to note is how many employees would be getting more than a 2%. It won't be everyone within that pay grade. So we're actually looking at each employee, where they fit at the median, and if they are at the median with the 2%, they wouldn't get anything more than that. Many of these individuals, almost all of them, are well below the median, sometimes 30, 40% or even more. So they would get up to just 5%. It's not going to get them anywhere close to the median, but it is going to be a significant salary increase for them to get them at least somewhere towards that.
The percent range lowest and percent range highest, explain those numbers so by instance what they are.
Percent range lowest is which of those employees, one of them is, or maybe more than one, is just 2.64% below the median. The lowest paid supervisor one is 28.58% below the median, and that again depends on where they are on the pay grade.
So that's below the median.
Correct.
Okay, very good. And I think the important thing is people understand it's a 5% cap. It's not 2% plus 5%.
Right.
Correct.
5% total.
5% total.
Total.
That's what was my question.
Yeah.
Okay, so 5% altogether. But everybody's guaranteed at least 2%.
Everybody's going to get 2%. Some employees are going to get more than that, but the most anybody would receive is 5% total. So we'll let you go through just for time's sake, we'll let you go through these. If you have questions, Mr. Johns is available to answer them. I'm available to answer them. But we wanted to give you some detailed information to kind of understand why we're recommending these targeted pay increases and just where they are most needed.
Any other questions? Because the rest of them are all the same format, just to divide up by the employee groups. So,
We've also got attachments on here, the category budget update that you can review. All of the line items are there that have been updated, so anybody who wants to look at line item by line item in our budget, it's there for them to look through.
That's my favorite thing to do.
There are people that want to do that, and that's why we make it available to them. So, and then the revenues updated is the exact same as in the PowerPoint, just in the format, the one-page format that we've used before. So, there are any other questions, we're happy to answer them, and if not, thank you, Mr. Johns.
Thank you.
Any other questions? It's a lot for us to look at. Appreciate the data. It's good. It does put it out in a way that spells out our needs. So. Okay, so we're at our public comment period at this point. Basically, it's time limit. It's 3 minutes per individual, 5 minutes per group. I'll open the public comment period now and give further directions if anyone wants to talk. Seeing no movement, we'll close the public comment period and go to the superintendent's report.
Thank you. We have a couple of discussion items that have been requested by board members that we included here. First one is student liaison to try and more define their role and expectations for our student liaison, which unfortunately they're not here today. We communicate with them via email, which I know probably isn't the best way to communicate with 17 and 18-year-olds, but we did let them know that the location had been changed. We may need to get some cell phone numbers and text them when we're updated information, but I will open this up to discussion. I'll start the discussion with one idea that I had, and that is to include on the agenda a report from the student liaison. It can be a report of information that the board has requested from the students to go back and talk to students about a topic and report back findings. It may just be to share, ask any questions or something, but to have a defined agenda item on all of our agendas where we ask the student liaison for input either that we've asked for or that they would like to share. So that was one thing that I thought of that could make sure that they're involved and that we would have a role for them. But again, I'm open for other suggestions. They're your liaison, so happy to use them however you see fit.
Well, that was the idea that I was thinking of when inviting them to do that. And did they say anything that they were interested in doing?
No, I don't think so. I talked to them briefly at the last meeting about that. They haven't mentioned anything to me per se. And I think they're willing to do whatever we ask them to do. I think they're hesitant to overstep their bounds. But if we do that, I know that they'll do a nice job with it.
I would start with that. Somebody else has something?
Mr. Chairman, what were they told when they agreed to do this and they were brave souls and stuff?
Yeah. What we kind of told them was we gave them the policy, and which doesn't have a lot of definition. We told them that they would be with the board during public meetings, not during closed sessions, of course, and that they would have an opportunity to ask questions or to provide the perspective of students and to represent their peers at board meetings. They may be asked to go back and do research or to get public opinion among their peers and bring that back to the board. So those are probably the four main things they were asked and they may be asked to do or to participate.
We do have one at Maggie at Appomattox. Basically there, the student liaison just reports school events. That wouldn't be necessarily appropriate for these guys because they represent multiple schools, not just one event. So I think Dr. Jones's idea was basically making something for some sort. You certainly make the school reports available to them so they can look at them. I think we're good. It's going to be slanted towards high school because that's where they're from. But that's a good thing.
Maybe one of the, if we needed more input on the middle school or elementary, or, well, I guess it's just middle school and junior high that have the student councils. If we felt it was important, they could contact them. But yeah, that's the whole idea, is just to get them ready for, they choose to do some kind of community service or role.
I think we can get ready to take our place on that.
That's
There you go.
That's, yeah.
Well, I think they're having a ball. I mean, I check in on them just because I'm afraid they're bored or, you know, they're sitting through, especially the joint meetings can be a little bit long. But they seem to be very happy, and a couple times I've told them that they could leave and they've chosen to stay. So I think they feel like they're involved and are enjoying it.
And I think that's a great idea about asking people about the board regional meetings, about something that's interesting to the students or something they'd like to share with the board. I mean, and I would suggest that we encourage them to do that at each of our meetings, as much as we provide comments. I think, again, it's just an idea that's engaging in the discussion, even if it's focused on the high school. I follow what Ms. Ayers said, that's okay. I mean, it's a learning experience. And I suppose that they've been told, you know, you've probably framed some kind of guidance around their attendance, that kind of thing. One of the two.
One of the two. And again, we told them from the beginning, it's one of the two, and both of them show up most of the time because they want to be there. So I think that's a good sign. But if that's okay with the board, we can go ahead and start adding that to the agendas and the meetings for them to come back and just bring a report. Either it could be something, their perspective of something that's on the agenda, or again, it could be something that the board asks for, student perspective. expected, or more information, or it could just be something that's going on that they want to share that's of student interest.
And maybe we can flesh out something that can be provided to them. This is our expectation.
Yep, we'll give them something in writing, so it's clear for them, yeah.
Okay, next item is Ms. Ayers, which school board self-evaluation retreat.
I know Ms. Wilson contacted VSBA. You want to share what they had to say?
They want a date, and they want to make sure that all members are present, so do this amongst all members. They'll be more than happy.
And they would like some direction about what we
Yeah.
want to get out of that. If it's building a self-evaluation tool, then that would be something we talked before, and the last retreat we did was kind of goals, and you know, the code of ethics came out of that. So they're more than willing to do it and can do it whenever. You know, if we wanted to do it soon, if we wanted to do it, wait until after budget season and do it, whatever pleasure the board is.
I'm just looking at you because I didn't do that.
Well, no, I mean, I did bring it up, and I know you changed it for a long time. I would suggest we look out the budgets, or we've got a lot of meetings over the next month, so, and I would suggest maybe a little bit of time.
Yep.
May. May.
Well, you want to do it in May, you want to do it like we did it a couple of years ago, do it in August.
During the summer. I mean, if we can work around
Summertime, everybody goes this,
August.
unless we're already, oh, when are we back? No, summer's not.
Well, we did it in August last time. We basically, we don't have we did not have a July meeting, so we did this in early August. You know, we kind of moved the August meeting around because of some other conflicts. So we only ended up with 2 meetings. One was the retreat, and one was the regular school board meeting. So it's the value of doing it when there's not 25 other things on your mind is that you can concentrate on the process rather than worry about what decision you're going to make on this.
Well, I get that, but, you know, summertime, family time, you know, I just, so you're saying instead of doing a meeting in August, clarify to me, I don't quite understand,
I
because
just-
we did the one in, last year, we did it in,
Charlottesville.
we did it in October.
Right, I think the first one we did was in August, and then we did one in October,
When did we do August?
before you were on the board.
Oh, okay, so that's right.
When I first
Okay.
came on board, we did one in
Okay.
August,
Oh.
and then we did the one in October when you and Mr. Frame came on board. And once we got through the season, we did one in October, so.
Okay, that's what I'm, all right, thank you. for clarifying.
Well, honestly, because we've been, I mean, first of all, it's something that we're required to do.
The self-evaluation.
Yes,
Right.
it is, we need to learn how to use this tool, and they can give us that. So I'd rather do it sooner than later. I have no issue waiting until after the budget is done. If you want to do, you know,
May or,
May,
Yep.
I mean, just sometime that we're actually in school, so then maybe that's a project we could work on over the summer.
And if I could just add to that, if any aspect of the evaluation is factored around the school year, we don't want to wait till August to try to do it because we're too close to the beginning of the school year to really decide what the evaluation needs to look like.
so we'll get some dates looking in May, and then look and see.
End of April, or not?
We'll be doing budget
Still
until.
then, okay. And then
we'll
what
have-
about the, you know, the changing of the school and all that?
Oh, about the middle school?
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess May seems like would be.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good time. All right, so we'll look at some dates that they're available, and then shoot them to everybody to make sure there's no conflicts, and we'll go from there.
So I have a question. So in the past, have you done this on the week, you know, when have you tried to do this and how long have you been?
It's done, we've usually done it during the week. It's usually a morning, we usually have lunch and then come back from Charlottesville. So we drive up in the morning, do it for 4 hours.
It was like a 10 o'clock start time, and I just know I had enough time to get my kids
Right.
on the bus, and
And we had
I was
like
back
a
in
working
time for-
lunch and then came back early afternoon.
Thank you.
bus.
we'll work on that then and get some more information to you.
Thank you.
Okay, last one is amending the school division calendar.
Yeah, Ms. Lynch has posted updated calendar based on feedback that we've received so far. Ms. Lynch, you want to hit some highlights real quick?
Certainly. We've had 2 or 3 major concerns come up. One was the calendar committee had thought that it would be a good idea to have our first parent-teacher conference day in October to avoid some problems that may come up with students if they wait too long. And so, as people have been thinking about that, I think we've gotten a lot of comments that most people would prefer to keep that till November, the end of the first 9 weeks. And so, what we normally have done for years on that date, on the Columbus Day date, would be our professional development day. So we are recommending to switch those back to the usual things that happen on those 2 designated days. Then at the same time that we had put out the calendar to first be considered by you all and to be seen by the public, we had to miss a meeting because of snow. At the same time, we had to cancel exams. So that meant that exams were really on the mind of our high school teachers and our high school administrators. They have commented in our survey as well as taken another in-school survey. And there is an overwhelming support to do exams in December. That does not mean to change the end of the semester, but simply do the exams the last 2 or 3 days that we would have before we break for winter break. And then that when the students come back in January, they start fresh. You don't have to spend extra time reviewing things, trying to cover the last 2 or 3 things for the semester and then review again. You really, most people believe that they would spend less time doing those things and have more time on constructive things, new things in the classroom. So we have changed the early release dates for the high school to December. And we'd like to put this back out for public comment. We had a nice selection of comments and see if we get anything else that arises. And we would like to bring it back to you all to make a decision about on the March 8th day.
Just real quick on the exams, and we may have mentioned this before, but I did want to point out that this is a model that Chesterfield's been using for a number of years. Their semester ends at the end of January, but they give exams before Christmas. It's worked well there, they like it. So it isn't something that we're just, it has been proven to be effective, and I think it will be better for our students and our staff.
This way, for any grades that fall during exams, they have 2 to 3 weeks, I guess, in January to start pulling them up a little bit and hopefully end up with better grades.
So that those assignments or that material just wouldn't be covered on the exam?
Right, we have to adjust our pacing guides and our curriculum to make sure that it's clear that this is what's going to be assessed on the exams, and then there would be some new material that would still be taught when we get back until the end of the semester.
That they would still be responsible for,
Yes.
but just wouldn't be on.
Right.
In a logical world, we would be able to start for Labor Day, do 90 days.
Every district, less than less.
The entertainment industry.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on that? Thank you, Ms. Lynch. Okay, next steps, Ms. Emil.
Well, nobody said it yet, the great news, I mean, can we say it, somebody say it? I mean, how exciting that we are getting the new junior, or middle school. And I guess, communication and letting us know so that when we get questions, we know what to respond to. I did get a comment about, are we salvaging anything for resale to, is that a possibility, or is everything No, down in the dumps.
Yeah, I received a couple questions today from people who spent a significant amount of time in that building, teaching there about keepsakes and bricks or other mementos of the building and saving those. So we're put together a committee to take a look at that. It's certainly something that can be done. We're going to salvage what we can that's usable from there in terms of furniture and materials and those types of things, and blow up the rest of it.
Well, good, I just, every dollar we can save on that.
I think they have any idea which one is bricks.
Really?
Were they about 2 feet long?
That's the second time I've got to start striking things from the minutes.
That's true.
Because people will be waiting to see that school.
Could be a fundraiser though.
And we will, I think I mentioned this earlier, but just will say that on March the 8th, we will do a full presentation for the board on the whole process of moving forward, communication, where we're starting to draft letters that we'll be sending home to families that will be impacted, to let them know where their children will be next year, and we'll have a full plan and presentation so that you're aware of what we're doing moving forward.
And then the other thing I saw, radon levels, I don't know if you guys saw, it was on the news, at Chesterfield, I believe, Henrico, and Richmond. Do we know when the last time we were tested for radon?
Yeah, we've done it at both the junior high and the middle school in the last year or two, and they came back clear.
Okay, and then do we know about the other schools, the elementaries or the high school?
We've had all the testing done. I'm trying to think.
Okay, you don't have to answer now. Can you check and see when the last
I
time we
can't,
went?
we're in full compliance on
Yeah, well, we'll check on that for you.
Only because I can see those questions coming after hitting the news yesterday. Okay, thank you.
I'm going to be brief, but it's great we've got a new middle school, but I do want to take a second to thank the people that really did a lot of work to make that happen. Dr. Jones, Mr. Johns, Russell, all the folks in this room that played a part in making this happen. If you couldn't be there last night, there was a round of applause after that vote, the entire room, because that was a big item in this county for the elections that we just finished. The public made their voice very loud and clear. And to each of you, thank you for what you did, because I know you talked to your friends, your neighbors, and you spent a lot of time making this happen on those work groups and things. This is huge for our county, it's huge for our students, and this will be impacted their educational experience for years and years to come. So thank you for what you did. I do appreciate that, and I was very happy to be there last night, and I was very proud of each and every one of you. And I'll tell you that, your staff, your leadership here got commended for everything that they've done, and they deserve it. So I just wanted to say that publicly. And that is all that I have. Thank you.
Just one quick thing, we got the notice through VSBA this week about the Southside Regional Forum. Again, as a board, I think it's really important that we attend that particular event because it focuses on the region that we're in, and it is April the 14th at Petersburg High School. So just want to reiterate that we'll let Michelle know. I think registration is April the 1st, I'm not sure. Okay, but just, reiterating that that's an important one that we try to attend. Thank you, that's all.
I'm excited about the middle school, and looking forward to that process. I think it's certainly good for the county. We're certainly patient. We can encourage the architects to move forward a little bit quicker than what they want to. And we can do to get as much done, even if it's demolition, before they just get something like we did here. We did the site work ahead of time, got as much done as we could. And anything that you try to keep that building on time, because I know that's always an issue as we move forward. And I'm very pleased at where we are with the budget, with raises. That's just sends a message to everybody that what our staff does is hugely important. We've gone lots of years without compensating, without giving them the compensation they deserve. We're just making some small steps in that direction, so appreciate that. And back to the post office second, I know we were in conversation with YMCA about all those people that use the junior high gym. They figure out to have some alternative arrangements in the next couple of years.
Yeah, we'll add that to the list. They've been aware, we've talked to them, but we'll let them know that it's final and so that they can give naming rights.
Mr. Tibbs is going to say some of those panels in the gym routinely follow. Anybody who wants to get that one, this will be a proven mentor.
Bag up some of the snow off the
The snow.
ceiling.
I want to thank Dr. Jones. This is the children's artwork on cards that we can all use to correspond to people. And thank you all very much.
Great idea.
We have a motion to adjourn.
So,
Second.
I'll second yours, go ahead.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn. Thank you very much.